Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you are the reason your life never truly changes? Not because life is against you. Not because you lack potential. But because somehow, every time things begin to improve, something happens. You pull back. You hesitate. You delay. You overthink. You sabotage. Again. And again. And again. You say you want change. You want peace. Growth. Success. Love. Healing. A better life. And consciously, you mean it. You truly want it. So why do you keep repeating the same painful patterns? Why do you keep returning to what hurts you? Why do you keep choosing what keeps you stuck? Carl Jung believed something profound. The greatest obstacle in your life may not be outside you. It may be inside you. Hidden. Unconscious. Quietly shaping your choices. Your reactions. Your relationships. Your fears. Your future. Jung understood something most people never realize. Sometimes the person standing between you and the life you want is you. Not the conscious you, but the unconscious parts of you. The parts you avoid, suppress, deny, ignore. The parts Jung called the shadow. And until you understand these hidden parts of yourself, you may continue sabotaging your own growth without even realizing it. In this video, we'll explore why self-sabotage happens, why people repeat painful patterns, and how Carl Jung's psychology can help you understand the hidden mental trap keeping you stuck. But before we begin, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were your own worst enemy? If your answer is yes, write in the comments. I'm ready to change. And if you're interested in psychology, self-awareness, emotional healing, and understanding the hidden forces shaping your life, subscribe to the Therapy Room. Every subscription helps this channel continue creating meaningful conversations for people all over the world. Now let's begin. What if the biggest thing sabotaging your life is something inside you? Let me ask you something difficult. How many times have you promised yourself things would be different? This time, you would stop overthinking. This time, you would choose better. This time, you would stop procrastinating. This time, you would leave what hurts you. This time, you would finally change. And for a moment, you believe it. You feel motivated, hopeful, ready. You tell yourself, this is the beginning of a new chapter. But then something happens. Days pass. Maybe weeks. And slowly, without fully understanding why, you return to the same habits, the same fears, the same behaviors, the same relationships, the same emotional pain. Again, and again, and again. This is one of the most frustrating experiences a human being can face. Because the pain is not only in suffering. The pain is in repetition. It's looking at your own life and asking, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep returning to what hurts me? Why do I keep choosing what keeps me stuck? Most people think patterns repeat because they lack discipline. Or because they are weak. Or because they simply don't want change badly enough. Carl Jung saw something much deeper. He believed repeated patterns often reveal unconscious material. Hidden parts of the psyche. Unresolved wounds. Suppressed fears. Old emotional conditioning. Things buried beneath awareness. Think about that. Sometimes what looks like bad decision-making is actually unconscious repetition. You are not just making choices. You may be replaying psychological patterns. Patterns built long ago. Patterns that feel familiar. And familiarity is powerful. Even painful familiarity can feel safer than unfamiliar growth. This is why people often repeat what hurts them. Not because they enjoy pain, but because pain can feel familiar. And what feels familiar often feels safe to the unconscious mind. This is where self-sabotage begins. Quietly. Subtly. Not as obvious destruction, but as repetition. Choosing the same toxic dynamic. Avoiding the same difficult conversations. Running from the same opportunities. Delaying the same changes. Repeating the same excuses. Over time, these patterns become identity. You begin telling yourself stories. This is just who I am. I always ruin things. I always go back. I never change. That story becomes dangerous. Because once repetition becomes identity, change feels impossible. But Jung would challenge that belief. Because patterns are not permanent. Patterns are signals. They reveal something. They point somewhere. They tell a story about what is happening beneath the surface. And if you want real change, you must understand the pattern. Not just fight the behavior. Understand it. Because behind every repeated pattern, there is usually a hidden psychological need. A hidden fear. A hidden wound. And until that becomes conscious, the cycle often continues. This raises an important question. If these patterns hurt us, why do we keep returning to them? Why does self-sabotage feel strangely familiar? And why can pain sometimes feel safer than change? That is exactly where we're going next. Here is something uncomfortable. Self-sabotage is rarely just self-destruction. Very often, it is self-protection. Think about that. At first, that sounds strange. Why would someone protect themselves by ruining their own progress? Why would someone sabotage love, success, growth, healing, opportunity? The answer is deeper than most people realize. Because the unconscious mind does not primarily seek happiness. It seeks safety. And safety is often defined by familiarity. Not by what is healthy. Not by what is good for you. By what feels familiar. This changes everything. Because sometimes what feels familiar is pain. Chaos. Rejection. Disappointment. Failure. Emotional distance. Uncertainty. If these patterns became familiar early in life, your nervous system may unconsciously interpret them as normal. As safe. As predictable. Now think about what happens when life begins offering something different. Real love. Peace. Success. Opportunity. Growth. A healthy relationship. A better future. Consciously, you want these things. Deeply. But unconsciously, something else may happen. Fear. Resistance. Discomfort. Anxiety. Because change, even positive change, can feel threatening to the unconscious mind. Why? Because change means unfamiliarity. And unfamiliarity can feel dangerous. This is why self-sabotage often appears right before growth. Right before success. Right before intimacy. Right before transformation. You begin moving towards something better. And suddenly resistance appears. You procrastinate. You withdraw. You overthink. You delay. You create excuses. You create distance. You return to old habits. Not because part of you wants to suffer, but because part of you feels safer in what is known. Even if what is known hurts. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He knew human beings often cling to familiar suffering rather than risk unfamiliar transformation. Read that again. Familiar suffering. Unfamiliar transformation. This is one of the deepest mental traps in human psychology. Because now the enemy is not obvious. The enemy is hidden. It appears as comfort. As caution. As delay. As hesitation. As I'll do it later. As maybe I'm not ready. As what if it goes wrong? It feels rational. But underneath, something deeper may be happening. Fear of change. Fear of loss. Fear of success. Fear of being seen. Fear of becoming someone new. This is why self-sabotage is so difficult to break. Because often you are not fighting laziness. You are fighting unconscious fear. And that fear usually has roots. Deep roots. Roots connected to hidden parts of the psyche. Parts of yourself you may not fully know. Parts Carl Jung believed most people spend their lives avoiding. He called these hidden parts the shadow. And understanding the shadow changes everything. Because the more unconscious something is, the more power it has over your life. That is exactly where we're going next. To truly understand self-sabotage, you must understand one of Carl Jung's most powerful ideas. The shadow. Jung believed every human being has parts of themselves they consciously identify with. The version of themselves they accept. The version they show to the world. The version they believe they are. Kind. Strong. Responsible. Intelligent. Good. Controlled. But Jung also believed there are parts of you that do not fit into that identity. Parts you reject. Suppress. Hide. Deny. These parts do not disappear. They simply move into the unconscious. Jung called this hidden part of the psyche the shadow. Think about that. The shadow is made of everything you refuse to fully see in yourself. Fear. Anger. Jealousy. Neediness. Insecurity. Shame. Resentment. Self-hatred. Pain. But the shadow is not only made of darkness. This is important. It also contains hidden power. Confidence you suppress. Desires you deny. Strength you fear. Potential you avoid. Parts of yourself you buried because at some point they felt dangerous, unacceptable, or threatening. The shadow is everything you push away from awareness. And here is the problem. What remains unconscious still influences your life. In fact, the more unconscious something is, the more power it has over you. Read that again. The more unconscious something is, the more power it has over your life. This is where self-sabotage becomes deeply connected to the shadow. Because often, you are not sabotaging yourself consciously. The shadow is doing it unconsciously. A hidden fear sabotages opportunity. A hidden wound sabotages love. A hidden insecurity sabotages success. A hidden belief sabotages growth. And because these forces are unconscious, they feel invisible. You only see the result. The procrastination. The avoidance. The overthinking. The withdrawal. The self-doubt. The repeated failure. But beneath all of that, something deeper may be operating. Something hidden. This is why Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That is profound. Because many people think life keeps happening to them. Bad relationships. Repeated failures. Painful patterns. Missed opportunities. Again and again. They call it bad luck. Bad timing. Bad circumstances. But Jung would ask a deeper question. What hidden part of you is helping create this pattern? That question changes everything. Because now the focus shifts. Not outward. Inward. Toward self-awareness. Toward truth. Toward the parts of yourself you may have spent years avoiding. This is uncomfortable work. Difficult work. But it is transformative work. Because healing begins the moment you stop running from yourself. The moment you stop fighting your shadow. And begin understanding it. This raises an important question. Why do so many people fear change, even when staying the same is painful? Why can suffering feel safer than transformation? That is exactly where we're going next. So what is the mental trap that keeps sabotaging your life? What is the invisible force behind all of this? Carl Jung would say it begins with unconscious identification. In simple terms, you become trapped by the version of yourself you believe you are. Think about that. Most people do not live according to their true potential. They live according to their self-image. According to the story they repeat inside their mind. The story becomes identity. And identity shapes behavior. This is the trap. You may consciously want a new life. But unconsciously, you keep protecting an old identity. An identity built through pain, fear, rejection, failure, shame, conditioning. And over time, that identity starts sounding like truth. I am not confident. I am not disciplined. I am not worthy. I always fail. I always sabotage good things. I am broken. These beliefs become internal laws. Invisible laws. Powerful laws. And once you believe them, your behavior begins aligning with them. Without realizing it, you start protecting the identity. Even when that identity hurts you. Read that again. You protect the very identity that keeps you suffering. Because the mind desperately wants consistency. Even painful consistency. This is the mental trap. You say you want change. But part of you is still loyal to the old self. Still loyal to the old wounds. Still loyal to the old story. And this creates inner conflict. One part of you wants growth. Another part fears it. One part wants healing. Another part resists it. One part wants freedom. Another part clings to the prison because at least the prison feels familiar. This conflict is exhausting. And it explains why so many people feel stuck for years. Because they are trying to build a new life, while unconsciously protecting an old identity. Jung understood something profound. Transformation does not begin when you change your behavior. Transformation begins when you stop identifying with the false self. The wounded self. The fearful self. The limited self. The unconscious self. This does not mean ignoring pain. It means becoming conscious of it. Seeing it clearly. Understanding it. Facing it. Because awareness breaks unconscious control. The moment you see the trap starts losing power. The moment you become conscious of the story, you stop being fully controlled by it. And that changes everything. Because now you can ask a different question. Not, what is wrong with me? But, what story about myself am I still protecting? That question can change a life. Because often, the biggest prison is not external. It is internal. A story. An identity. A belief. And once you stop feeding that false identity, something powerful happens. You begin becoming free. Which brings us to the final and most important question. How do you stop becoming your own worst enemy? How do you finally break free? That is exactly where we're going next. Let me leave you with one final thought. You are not fighting life as much as you think. Many times, you are fighting yourself. Your fears. Your wounds. Your unconscious patterns. Your old identity. The hidden parts of you that still believe staying small is safer. That staying hidden is safer. That staying the same is safer. Carl Jung believed something deeply transformative. The greatest battle in life is not external. It is internal. It is the battle between consciousness and unconsciousness. Between truth and illusion. Between growth and fear. Between who you are and who you could become. This is the real battle. And perhaps this is why self-sabotage feels so painful. Because deep down, part of you knows. You know you are capable of more. You know there is another version of you waiting to emerge. A stronger version. A freer version. A more whole version. A version not controlled by old wounds. Not controlled by fear. Not controlled by unconscious patterns. But becoming that version requires something difficult. Radical honesty. The courage to stop lying to yourself. The courage to face what you avoid. The courage to meet your shadow. Not to hate it. Not to destroy it. But to understand it. Because Jung never taught that healing comes from rejecting parts of yourself. He taught that healing comes from integration. From awareness. From making the unconscious conscious. This is where real freedom begins. The moment you stop running. The moment you stop blaming. The moment you stop repeating the same unconscious patterns. The moment you finally see clearly. This pattern is not me. This fear is not me. This old story is not me. These wounds shaped me. But they do not define me. That realization changes everything. Because now you are no longer trapped inside the false identity. Now you can choose. Consciously. Powerfully. Differently. And change begins there. Not in perfection. Not overnight. But in awareness. One conscious choice at a time. One honest moment at a time. One pattern broken at a time. This is how transformation happens. Slowly. Deeply. Powerfully. Before we finish, I want to ask you something. What is one pattern in your life you know you need to break? Be honest. What keeps sabotaging you? Fear? Procrastination? Overthinking? Self-doubt? Toxic relationships? Write it in the comments. One word is enough. Sometimes naming the pattern is the first step toward breaking it. And if this conversation resonated with you, subscribe to the therapy room. Every subscription helps this channel continue creating meaningful conversations about psychology, emotional healing, self-awareness, and personal transformation. And if you know someone who feels trapped in self-sabotage, share this video with them. Sometimes one conversation can change everything. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourself. And remember, your greatest enemy is not your shadow. Your greatest enemy is refusing to face it.